means that all their previous plans for creating a space station were cancelled.
This is a story of tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, when men have built a station in space constructed in the form of a great wheel and set 1,000 miles out from the Earth, fixed by gravity and turning about the world every 2 hours, serving a double purpose, an observation post in the heavens and a place where a spaceship can be assembled and then launched to explore other planets and the vast universe itself. In the last and greatest adventure of mankind, a plunge toward the...
It also says here that there was much debate and infighting about this decision, and that there was a strong opposition from within NASA towards this LOR, or Lunar Orbit Rendezvous program. So why was there so much debate and opposition to this program? Basically, it was because of this. The Lunar Orbit Rendezvous plan was not a practical plan. Wernher von Braun had been talking about building a space station for nearly 10 years prior to this. The reason why he knew a space station was needed was because a ship which could protect the astronauts from the deadly radiation of space would need to be extremely heavy. And such a heavy type of ship would need to be refueled at the space station before heading to the moon.
Here to reveal a plan for a trip around the moon is the chief of the guided missile development at the United States Army's Redstone Arsenal, Dr. Wernher von Braun.
A voyage around the moon must be made in 2 phases. A rocket ship taking off from the Earth's surface will use almost all the fuel it can carry just to attain a speed great enough to balance the pull of gravity. Unpowered, it will then keep circling the Earth in an orbit outside of the atmosphere. This is the first phase. However, if we can refuel the ship in this orbit with fuel brought up by cargo rocket ships, it can set out on the second phase, the trip around the moon and back. To facilitate this refueling operation, we will establish an advanced base in the orbit, 1,000 miles above the Earth. This advanced base, or space station, will be headquarters for the final ascent to the moon.
In this 1955 video, we can see Wernher von Braun standing next to his space station. We can see him discussing his plan to use the space station as a refueling stop. This was a practical plan. The ship he was considering sending to the moon had not only a heavy amount of shielding, but it also had a nuclear-powered generator on board which could create a shield around the craft. He knew that this was the only way to protect the astronauts from the radiation.
This model will show you how our future moon rocket ship might be designed. It will be 53 feet in length, has no wings or tail surfaces, because it will be assembled and operated only in the vacuum of space. For the hull of the ship, we are adapting the cabin section of one of the Earth to Space Station passenger rockets. To the nose, we have added a small atomic reactor, which will drive a steam turbine and furnish electricity for the ship's instruments. This shield will protect the crew members from dangerous radiation. The ship's crew of 4 men will be placed 2 in the front and 2 back here. This is the directional radio radar antenna. Located underneath is the airlock for a spacesuit. The suit can be entered from inside the ship. Clustered around the rear of the ship are the 7 extra fuel tanks filled with hydrazine and nitric acid. All but the centrally located tank will be released when empty near the end of the return trip to cut down on dead weight. Even though we now have the theoretical knowledge to make a trip to the moon, it will be many years yet before our plans can fully materialize.
But yet, here he is in 1962, promoting the Lunar Orbit Rendezvous Plan, showing a couple of flimsy crafts with no protection from the deadly radiation of space. This was basically his way of telling the world that NASA was going to fake it. In order to fully understand why we know this, we are going to have to put this event into its historical context. What was the political and economic situation going on before and after this decision? On May 25 of 1961, JFK made an announcement to Congress about his intention to put a man on the moon. This took place just about 1 month after the whole Bay of Pigs affair. The Bay of Pigs was basically an attempted coup. The CIA and other powers that be wanted Kennedy out of office. And although the Bay of Pigs didn't really work, it did succeed in making Kennedy look really bad in the public eye. The mainstream media was criticizing him for not handling the affair properly. Kennedy's announcement to put a man on the moon was an attempt to save face. He wanted the public to see him in a good light again after the Bay of Pigs affair. After this announcement, NASA knew the pressure was on. From May of 1961, three things started happening. First, NASA had to decide which plan they were going to use to get to the moon, and they also needed to start preparing a budget for this plan. The third thing was that Congress had to discuss among themselves and agree how much money to award NASA. To make matters worse, NASA knew absolutely nothing about the moon at the time. They hadn't even been able to send any craft to the moon. And had only barely succeeded in sending the first man into space just a few weeks before. Basically, all their plans for sending a man to the moon were based purely on science fiction. From 1961, the discussion going on was between which one of three options they had for reaching the moon. The first was to send one super big and super heavy rocket. The first was to send one super big and super heavy rocket on a direct course to the moon without a need to refuel.